Hello friend, welcome to all of you this SYBCom online lecture of Business Economics Macros Sem-IV, and we are looking here the chapter number 2, inflation, and last point of this chapter, the stagflation, meaning and causes of stagflation and measures on this stagflation. So we are looking here the topic number 2, inflation. We already discussed some point like meaning, definition and types of inflation. Also we discussed about the causes of inflation, demand side causes and the supply side causes of inflation. We also discussed some consequences of the inflation, means effects of inflation in different sector of the economy and different segment of the economy, the effects. And we also discussed the demand pull inflation, which is the type of the inflation, and cost push inflation in our lecture number 1. Today we discuss the 2.5 stagflation, meaning and the causes, which is the last point of this topic number 2. So where the exist of inflation and the unemployment of the state is called the stagflation, which is we discuss in our next slide. So stagflation is a new concept which has been introduced in economics in 1970. In an economy, the economic recession on one hand and rising prices of goods and services on the other hand is called stagflation. The concept of stagflation is the combination of two words in English, stag and inflation, means taking from the stag from the stagnation, and the inflation means from the inflation. So stag is a situation like the recession, and inflation means a situation like the inflation. So the combination of stagflation, stag plus inflation means stagflation. So we discuss here. The term recessionary inflation was first coined by the McLeod on July 7, 1970. The concept of stagflation is the combination of stable economic growth, high unemployment and high inflation. So from 1970 to 1980, rising the price of goods and services were to be conducive the economy. But after 1970, rising crude oil prices lead to the inflation and the stimulations decline into the production and high unemployment. That the time many economics name this condition as called the stagflation. So meaning of the stagflation, what is the stagflation? Stagflation, on the one hand, the prices of goods and services rise in the economy and continuously rise, and on the other hand, the total output fall between the total employment and unemployment rate rise sharply. So this is because in the Phillips curve, when the inflation rise, the unemployment rate decrease with an increase in the total output and the total employment. So the Phillips curve is an economic concept developed by A.W. Phillips, stating that inflation and unemployment have a stable inverse relation. The theory claimed that the economic growth comes inflation, which in turn should be a lead more job and less unemployment. So A.W. Phillips also explained these two situations both at curve. It's called the Phillips curve, the inflation and unemployment. But here we discuss only the stagflation, the concept of stagflation. So for example, in the world, this situation during the December 2019 to till the date of the 12th May 2021, we faced the pandemic like COVID-19, and it has affected to the production and supply of goods and create a shortage of essential commodities. So lockdown has led to a drop in the production, disturb of the transportation service leading to the rising the unemployment. This is a situation can also be called a stagflation, because on one hand the shortage of goods because of the lockdown, and the other hand the unemployment is rising economy because of the COVID pandemic and lockdown. So definition, what the definition of the stagflation? Stagflation is defined as a situation in which the price of goods and services rise and the price of economic fall. There is an increase, but the overall productivity level and the unemployment level decrease, and the unemployment rate the increase. So stagflation is defined that where the prices are rise in economy and the unemployment is also the economy. From example in the 1970s, as well as the after the global recession started in 2008 and 2020-21 due to the pandemic COVID-19, many countries around the world have experienced the stagflation. When the prices of goods and services continue the rise in the economy, and at the same time, other hand, when the production and unemployment decline, the economic transaction slow down. It's called the stagflation. So in the COVID pandemic, we also see that the employment declining, the prices are rising because of shortage of goods, and so it's we also call it a stagflation. Stagflation is the special situation. Thus, when the commodity price rise one hand, and there is the declining in the production and the unemployment on other. Thus, characteristics of both inflation and recession are simultaneously the coexistence of rising price and rising unemployment is simply called stagflation. So, for example, in 1970, the government around the world increased their public spending to increase the gross domestic product and employment, but did not result an increase into the total employment in these countries. Therefore, most of the countries had a strict monetary policy applied in 1973 and 1974. The concept of stagflation we can also explain with the diagram. Here we are looking at one diagram that the x-axis we measure the output and unemployment, and y-axis we measure the price level. D and D1, these are the demand curve. S1, these are the two supply curve. Suppose that the government use any policy and try to increase the demand of the people in the during of recession. So demand curve is the shift to the upward side, and the intersect point of the supply curve and demand curve is change E to E4 or E2, and that same time the supply is not change but reduce. So supply curve is shift to the left side, and demand curve is shift to above side. So demand is more and supply is the short. That time the OQ1 is the reduce the production from OQ to OQ1. So reduction of the production, and the price settle from to the OP to OP1 at the E2 point. So here we looking the stagflation. So in short, the figure above show the declining in the production and the employment level from Q to Q1, and increase the price level from P to P1, and the balance between supply and demand E shift to the E2, while P to P1 is the situation of the stagflation. So production Q to Q1 decreases if the price is P to P1 increases. If the E2, this is the equilibrium point, P1 is the stagflation situation in the economy. So we have discussed here the some causes of the stagflation. What are the causes are responsible for this stagflation? So first cause is the increase in the oil prices. The rise in the price of the fuel oil in the international market. This condition is the most often caused by the supply side shock. Such a situation increase in production cost lead to the decrease in the supply because of the rising the transportation charges and the crude oil price. So increase in oil price because of the increased price in international market, and therefore there is the supply side shock, and such situation increase the production cost, and that's why the units does not increase their supply and decrease in total supply. The next reason is the powerful trade union. If the trade union have the more bargaining power to get the higher wage rate, allowances, post wage benefits, they can the bargaining power pay rise even in the time of recession, and therefore the increase the production cost of the producers, and therefore the shortage of goods and services. So sometimes they call the strike, it's also responsible to shortage of supply. And the falling in the productivity, when the economy is affected the naturally man-made disaster or any other reasons work and also become the insufficient if they experience the tendency of they reduce the total productivity of capacity. So falling productivity because of some natural calamities and some of the man-made calamities, or some of the reason like the pandemic situation of COVID-19. So there is the reason falling productivity. The next is the increase in structural unemployment. The excessive use of modern technology has led to decline in the traditional industries and increase in structural unemployment and declining in gross domestic product. So increase the structural unemployment because of use of modern techniques. The next reason is the changes in demand of the labor. In growing economy, when the demand for labor suddenly increase for some reason, everyone try to produce more goods. This is because if the demand for goods change and wages increase and price the level also starting to rise because of labor is demand more wages for their maintenance and of living. The next reason is the sudden fall in the supply. When there is a sudden fall in the supply due to some natural or human disasters, for example flood, drought situation, wars, the tsunami or COVID-19 pandemic situation, due to sudden decrease in the supply, as a result rising the price of goods and services lead to the slowdown in the inflation. So there are the shortage of the oxygen, ventilators, the medicines like injections, and therefore the sudden fall in the supply because of the lockdown, and this is the reason for the stagflation. The next reason is the macroeconomic policy. Even if there is the mistake in the government economic growth and the unemployment control measures, the problem of stagflation is created, and the failure of the improper use of the holistic economic policies. So when the government policies are failed to control the situation, unemployment and the inflation, so the situation is created like this stagflation. The last reason is increase in money supply. When the central bank and commercial bank in the country acquire more money through the monetary policy, then the money supply increase, the purchasing power of the people increases, the result the inflation, and the central bank rises the interest rate. It also discourages the industrial production. So these are the reasons of the stagflation. The some measures we are also looking for on these situation of the stagflation. So measures on the stagflation. First is the alternative source of business. Due to some reason the raw material are not available, the alternative are not available, production of the suitable items should be start as per the changing circumstances. For example, the global COVID-19 pandemic situation, many companies have installed the ventilators, PPE kits, the sanitizer, vaccines, masks, etc. And the alternative product immediately began to the production. Some of the companies like the Parle-G company also introduced their sanitizer in the market. So alternative source of the business is the major to in the situation like stagflation, increase the employment level. Change in credit supply, the government and RBI should make a policy change toward the credit and make appropriate changes in the rate of interest according to situation and control the money supply in the economy. The next is the necessary action to take by the government, create an atmosphere of trust among the people by creating a stability among the main banks, and measures should be taken by replicate the price. So necessary action of the government taken for this situation like this inflation. The tax reduction, the reduce the cost of production. The government should reduce or exempt the taxes against the backdrop of the COVID-19. The government of India has made changes in GST and the rate of the payment times, also declining for the filling the income tax return. Assessment has been the change end of the July instead of the end of March. So tax reduction and exemption is given the period of the stagflation. The next measure is the wages policy. Instead of increase the wages by the implement the social security scheme and minimum wages policy for the workers, an agreement should be made with the trade union to freeze their wages increase temporarily or their dearness allowance or other allowance. Expenditure on the unproductive wages should be the temporarily reduced. Wage policy and productive should be a link with the as per the our national policy. So these are the measures on the stagflation, alternative source of business, change in credit supply, necessary action to be taken by the government, tax reduction and exemption, and wages policy. So summary of this lecture, what we learned from this video: the stagflation is a new concept. It has introduced in economics in analysis in 1970s. The concept of stagflation is a combination of two words in English: stag plus inflation. Stag means the stagnation, and the inflation means the inflation. The term the recessionary inflation first coined by McLeod on July 7, 1970. So this situation where we see both things, that the rising price and unemployment, when the prices of goods and services continuously rise in the economy, at the same time on other hand when the production and employment decline and the economic transactions slow down, it's called the stagflation. So stagflation causes, we also discuss, increase of oil prices, trade union, money supply, supply shock, etc. So rising price inflation and the rising unemployment, both characteristics, the simultaneously coexistence of the two in the stage of the stagflation. The main reason of stagflation is a decline in the number of products and the employment and the rising of the prices. So employment is not rise but rising in the price. This is due to the declining the aggregate demand and supply. When the stagflation feature coexists, it was hard to control. This is because the measure taken of control inflation have the opposite effect to the recession. Attempt to the reduce of inflation increase the rate of inflation is the introduced in economy, which is explained by the A.W. Phillips on the Phillips curve. So therefore the economists say that the various measures should be taken strictly a properly balance between these two stages, unemployment and the inflation. So thank you for watching this video. You can use some books for this topic: ML Jingan Macroeconomic Theory, H.R. Macroeconomic Theory, Rasa R.G. P.Adhav, Hotekar, Hola, Business Economics Macro, Sem-IV, Persian Publication, Jarga books is also available. The assignment question on this topic: explain in detail for 15 marks the define stagflation and explain the reasons and measures on the stagflation. So this question will be asked in examination for 15 marks for you. The next time we will meet the next topic in next video. Thank you.